What's good, Internet? And welcome to session 11 of Super GG Radio, where friends chat about video games and video game adjacent stuff. Join with me, as always, is Epic Game Store hater Joel DeWitt. Hey, Joel.
What a save. What a save. What a save.
I can't wait to see how civil game chat is in Rocket League now. I miss those sarcastic congratulations after you miss a block, or those false swears. Anyway, this week, gotta go fast with top Rocket League betrayals and news. We got our chef hat on with the Backlog Blog and touch on some exciting Super GG radio news before we go. But first, as always, Early Adopter. Early Adopter, where we play alphas, betas, early pre-release demos, and just some new games. This week, me and Joel shared the duties by playing Totally Accurate Battle Simulator.
This game is just silly.
I had a lot of fun with it, and I like to find interesting ways to play some of these, and this is another one of those not your usual party games for me and my friends. Did you, you only played solo though, right?
Yeah, let's define what solo means. I did sit with my sons and let them play around with it a little bit with me first, before they went to bed.
See, now that's a good idea.
There's just... So, my sons and I have something in common where the first thing we wanted to do was try to break the game. And I guess we should set the table a little bit. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, on its face, has two different modes, and it's a early access game on Steam. The two modes are a campaign where it sets you up with different scenarios where it'll be a red side and a blue side. You're controlling the red side, and you're given a limited number of credits or points where you can assign different unit types. And they're through different times of battle, so it'd be like medieval or Eastern influences like ninjas and stuff, or even like farmers and halflings and weird stuff like that.
I like the caveman a lot, just because it was real silly to watch them with you fight people with swords and shields, and they're just throwing rocks and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's primitive, and especially when you get the elephants involved, it gets real silly.
So they set you up in these combat scenarios where there will be one giant army, and you could pan the camera around, look in the bushes, look in the trees, see everything that they're bringing to the table, and then they give you a value of how much you can spend for your troops, and you can mix and match from all of these different types of fighters and Vikings and Greeks and Romans and whatever you like. You throw them in there based on how much each unit costs. There's varying costs throughout each type, and each level is just different combat scenarios. Sometimes it's one-on-one, sometimes it's a full army.
And it's worth noting, each of the different units have a sort of rock, paper, scissor sensibility, because some units will be stronger against others or weaker against others. So ones that are more shielded might be a little less killable by archer units, whereas some of the quicker ones might be a little bit weaker in general, but if you pile them on, they might overtake the enemy forces just by a sheer force of will. So one of the segments on the campaign, I'm sure there was a legitimate strategy they wanted you to use. I just piled on a bunch of halflings, and it was like a tidal wave taking over all the enemies.
Like those zombie hordes in the movie with Brad Pitt.
Days Gone?
No, yeah, like Days Gone. World War Z.
World War Z. Yeah.
What I found a little bit more interesting to me was the fact that it doesn't always play the same. If you lose your scenario, you can just hit play again, and sometimes you'll win. It's all a dice roll.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing you have to come to terms with a little bit, and something I grappled a little bit in the time I played with it before now. There was a scenario where you are gated in two small corridors, basically, and I figured out that you could place units on top of buildings. Mm-hmm. So after struggling for a while, I thought, I'll put archers up there, and then I'll put bards, which sort of get aggro from the enemies and get them to follow them. I thought, I'll put a bard down there and have them run across the street, and then I'll have the archers sit on top and pot shot them until there's like almost none left, and then I'll put a few knights at the end to sort of finish them off. Well, you hit start simulation, and they all just start walking off of their posts, walking towards the enemies. Yep. So it's like, no, you're being too stupid to figure out my strategy. You need to be smarter than this.
That's why I started positioning them in very specific places where I'm like, you can't die here. This is the foolproof plan. Because there's one map that's a river in the middle, and you have to have them go over the bridge, because if you don't, they just walk right into the river and die instantly. Now, what the
So-
the one thing to note about this also is that all of the combatants all have like real silly googly eyes and almost minion-like qualities. When they're colored red or blue, it's just that's their skin tone, and they look like minions, just real silly, and make really silly, like kooky noises. They're talking like almost Simlish, I want to say.
Yeah, they're all everything in the game looks like it's made of clay, kind of, except the background environments. They try to shade it and color it in a way that makes it look like a background, but the characters themselves are mostly the one single color of the side they're on. So they look like these facsimiles of Gumby walking around over the battlefield, and they've got that kind of sway and rubberiness as they're walking around too. So if they run into another enemy unit, they'll be sort of pushing and pulling against each other if they get caught on each other. Or similarly, I had one situation where there was just one bad guy left, and I had two spear throwers, and the enemy got caught behind a tree and was just laying over a trunk, and I just sat there watching for a minute straight while my spear throwers were trying to hit him and kept on hitting the tree instead over and over again until it finally gave out and they actually hit one. But it's definitely that kind of weird floppy jank that it's not supposed to be precise. It's supposed to be just as much about making you laugh and seeing the silliness out of it.
So what happened when you were playing with your boys?
So the first thing we did was go into the sandbox mode, which is the other main mode for this early access game. And, of course, you can put different backgrounds on it, and if you choose simulation, it's basically just a grid on the ground. So we
Like
went with
the Matrix?
simulation. No, not like the Matrix. Anyway, so what do you do when you first look at the screen? You pick a unit type, and you hold down the left click, and you just drag it up and down like you're trying to shade in painting on MS Paint.
Yeah.
So we started on one side and chose a pretty basic unit and just went up and down until the left-hand side was filled. The right-hand side, we picked a different unit and went up and down the same way. Added a few elephants for good measure.
Of course.
And hit start. The game chugged furiously for a good 5 seconds. Blurry, delayed, everything, and then it crashed.
It's awesome that you crashed it.
My son's first comment is, well, what happened? Why did you turn off the game? I had to explain to him, no, I didn't turn off the game, buddy. I broke it. But so the next half hour while they were still awake was spent going through whatever scenarios we could to try to break the game again, because that was more funny to them than actually trying to create some sort of balanced scenario. And then we got to another point where instead of crashing, it just chugged and chugged and chugged for about 2 minutes straight, where it was going about 1 frame per second. And they got bored and went to watching Pokemon.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, from my experience, I had, like I do, I'll have a friend over, or I'll be playing a game with my wife, and we'll be having drinks and just relaxing, and then I go, well, let's try this one out. And I throw it on, get scenario 1, I set it up, I show them what to do, how I'm doing it, all the different units, I give them an example, what's going on, I play it out, and they all, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, okay, now I have it on my TV, I'm at the PC, tell me, what are we going to do to fix this one? This combat scenario, what should we throw in there? What would get weird? What would get crazy? Let's just try to think of what would be the funniest setup to put here. And we all just kind of go nuts. My friend Steve was really a strategist with it. He was thinking about it. He looked like he was really taking the time to, like, okay, they got rocks here so they can hide there. And he was being a real big strategist. And my wife Beth was just like, what about another elephant? Do we have enough for another elephant? It's going to be real good. Let's put it together. It's going to be 3 elephants. It's going to be chaos. Let's go. I'm like, okay. So each time I was playing with somebody, I just kind of let them take the reins, and we'd put in these scenarios, and just had a blast. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like Dane Beasts in that it has that sort of floppiness, goofy motion that can really just present some absurd-looking waving around and back and forth that can induce a lot of laughing and just stupid fun. So that made sense to me that you guys could find a way to make it a multiplayer experience, too. I tried to sit down with Kelly at one point before we recorded to give it a shot, but time got in the way and the office, so she has her priorities.
I was going to say that, that's the main point of it for me, to make it a little bit more fun, is they have a really good camera control. When you set up these scenarios and you hit fight, there isn't you have no control over your own your own troops. So for me, it's zoom in real fast, get tight in those angles, be right up in their face in the chaos, hold down left click, and it's slow-mo time, and everything slows down, the sounds slow down. You see their eyes turn to X's when they die. You're spinning around, and it's like these googly people speaking in Simlish, just like flapping and slapping into each other.
See, that's funny to me. I didn't zoom in or slow down too much. I usually just was wanting to look from the top-down view to get a sense of, like, oh, okay, was this going to be successful, or did I bone myself on actually accomplishing this route? And one of the nice things about it that I noticed, too, was that at any time during your attempt, you can hit the tab button, and it'll just stop it and set you back to the starting point of setting your units where you left them off. And then you can sort of make adjustments or clear the whole field and try again. Has that really good sort of like quick start over feel to it if you know what controls to put into it.
Oh yeah, I think I'm going to continue to use this for parties just because it can get a lot of people into something big and everyone can pick a piece, pick a part of it, pick like, okay, I think we should throw more Vikings. And someone goes, what about Zeus? Zeus is a unit. That's cool. Throw Zeus in there.
I think my favorite one that I ran into was the dragon.
Okay.
And the dragon, it's not a legitimate dragon. It's like, in a movie when something's happening in like China or something, it'll be like the 4 or 5 guys with the poles walking around with like a float of a dragon. Mm-hmm. It's that. it's like they'll walk around like that, and then the dragon will actually shoot fire. But there was one scenario where I put 5 dragons versus 5 dragons, and they don't insta-kill each other when they hit with fire. Mm-hmm. So again, the AI is dumb, so they'll just walk straight towards the nearest enemy as they're shooting this stuff. And it became less about who killed who with the fire, and more like one dragon would start pushing against the other dragon unit and tipping them over. And just bumping into them enough times to where they eventually die instead of actually flaming them to death.
Is that what units are that?
It's literally just dragon, but it's in the same tab with like the ninjas and monks.
That's kind of what I was getting to. Is I think that the game has been updated since I played, because we never got the ninjas yet. They're still it is in Steam Early Access, so they're still updating and adding more units to it. And in my case, I have not seen that yet.
Right, I think they have a couple more that they're working on too, including, I'm not sure if the Vikings one is done yet or not, but I did notice that there were 2 tabs on the far right of the menu that said coming soon when you select them. So it looks like that's one of the big ways that they're going to expand upon this game as it's in early access, is to just add more units. And I mean, I'll say that if you look at the campaign, there's a lot of different levels. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, more power to them if they add more, and I'm not going to complain about that in terms of content, but it's pretty comprehensive, actually, when it comes to, like, the different level sets that they've provided. So, I kind of think leaning heavily into the add more ridiculous units, different eras of combat to draw upon might be the prudent way for them to really evolve what people are going to get out of this game, which I think the sandbox is where this thing's really going to have legs over the long run.
No, I completely agree. That's why, I played 1 hour and a half, 2 hour sessions, so I played total around 6 hours. And in that time, I'm still excited. You told me there's ninjas. I'm like, well, I got to get back in there now. I have to play it because of the ninjas. You know what I mean? Like, them adding more gets me so much more excited for it.
Right. This really scratches a similar itch to something like a bridge constructor for me, to be honest. Just the sort of, they give you an open-ended problem, and they let you choose how to solve that problem within a limited bit of resources. For the campaign, at least, that sort of is a similar structure. And it still has that kind of hilariously bad results, too, in that in a bridge constructor, you can make a horribly inefficient bridge that might fall apart as the car's driving through, but it still accomplishes the goal. Similarly, for something like this, you can hilariously have 100 halflings running at a handful of monks, but maybe there's just so much that it's overwhelming and takes them over and slows down the game down to like 10 frames per second in the process, but you see just like 4 or 5 halflings per monk climbing on top of them and burying them in hobbits. But it's stupid and funny, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah, I think that overall, I wanted to say that my favorite unit were these guys where one guy was pushing two other people in a wheelbarrow who are throwing rocks. And he is driving that thing like that's his job, and he is Tokyo drifting that thing around the map like nuts. It's
that thing's overpowered.
Yeah, it's just Tokyo drift and take out 4 units at once.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe like the unit costs are a little bit lopsided in some ways too, because you look at like the medieval settings, like the king costs an inordinate amount of money, and from what I can tell, I'm not even sure what value there is other than maybe he's a little more stout, unlikely to fall over right away. But he's like the most expensive one, whereas like the general knights are pretty sturdy and take a little bit to fall over, but they're cheap as hell. So I'm not sure what the economy is that they're trying to balance on that, or maybe if it's trying to give you a false choice of like thinking the most expensive is always going to be the best, but then it's a bait and switch on some. I'm not sure.
Nah, man, that king is a tank. We had one where we got kind of stuck and hit a dead end where we were just hitting our head against that king. That king is beefy.
No, really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm just using it wrong. I'm not sure.
Overall, I think that if they continue to add more units and some of the sandbox mode is still having a lot of fun, you just keep updating with different eras, I think this will be consistently played around at least in my house.
I think this will be something I dip back into. The one thing I would maybe hope for is maybe some sort of workshop access. I mean, think about the user-created levels that somebody could come up with the campaign tools where they set the amount of units you're facing and give you a certain number of credits to buy units against.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the Mario Maker kind of solution where it's an endless amount of content for whoever's willing to go through the trouble to make up the scenarios, you know.
Oh, yeah. Regardless of what they do in the future, they currently have a really great game, and I think that the future is bright for it. But those units really do have some weird, creepy eyes, and speaking of soulless dead eyes that will haunt you in your nightmares, maybe that's too mean. Let's talk about it next in the news. And we're back in the news. Now, this is our news segment where we talk about the news, but not all the news, just the news that we find interesting and think that we can have some fun conversations with. First things first, Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie trailer. Now, I want to start off by saying it's not as bad as the internet says it is. It's just really hip to hate Sonic, and I don't know when that happened.
I think it happened around the time that he started French kissing girls, like real-life girls.
Yeah. Okay, I think a lot of people were really upset by that.
2006, is that the year that one came out? I forget. But severe lack of chili dogs. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Jaleel White.
Yeah, severe lack of Jaleel White. Not hashtag not my Sonic. But I agree with you. I mean, that's the internet treated it like a calamity, and I mean he. So anecdotally, my 7-year-old, I showed him the trailer the day it came out, because figuring he actually liked Sonic, so he'd be excited, and he was real excited to see the rings come around, and then the blue blur go around, and then they show the shot, and the first things he said was, "That doesn't look like Sonic." So it's like even my 7-year-old gets that something's wrong here.
Is something wrong with Sonic? Is he having a really bad day? Is he sick? It could have been closer to the game look, but but there has been this trend where people will look back and say Sonic 1 and 2 weren't good games, and I disagree. But I grew up on it. Maybe I'm too close to it.
I don't know. There's something. I'm having trouble figuring out the line between what's legitimate criticism and people playing into how bad they claim it is so they can come up with their own jokes and try out their bad stand-up routine online. That seems to be a lot of what Twitter and the internet's for anymore. But you have to admit, there's been a lot of good photoshopping going around.
A lot of memes and a lot of Photoshop, like left and right. I've got like 17 saved on my phone because I'm like, oh man, this is really good. Oh man, this is also really good.
And you think about the way that this information's been sort of rolled out over time for this movie, where it was like somebody took a snapshot on their phone of the poster with Sonic's legs draped over the Golden Gate Bridge, right? And then from the start, it was doomed to a hyper reaction from people online about how they've ruined Sonic. It's like, you realize for a lot of people, Sonic was already ruined without this movie's help.
Of course. But he has had a downswing since I think it kind of started with Xbox. I liked Adventure 1 and 2. They weren't the best, but I liked them. I think it was around that Xbox game was really, I think it was 360, right?
Right. Yeah. So I dropped off with the Sega Genesis, not for a lack of want, though, because I remember back when the Dreamcast came out, I would go to our Sears and see the display kiosk and sort of be drooling at the idea of playing 3D Sonic and seeing the level with the whale chasing you down. And but yeah, that's where I dropped off. So I really haven't experienced what's considered the worst of Sonic.
I remember the 361 having, I think, 1.5 to 3 minute wait times, like load times, and they were also between each mission and also each conversation. So you would walk up to an NPC, 1.5 load time. Here's the quest conversation, 1.5 load time. Now you're in the level. So it became intolerable to do anything in that game.
Oh yeah, especially for a game that touts speed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the total antithesis of what that game's supposed to be like. Now sit here and wait for a few minutes. Can we talk about that music choice for a second?
Why?
Who owed Coolio a favor? That's what I want to know.
Who's like, we should bring back, let's restart Coolio's career. It's such a, there's so many remixes of Green Hill Zone that are just banging. Why Coolio?
I understand using a licensed piece of music for this. Lots of movies do it. Made sense. Why Gangster's Paradise? Why? There is not even the loosest connection to what you envision Sonic as. I mean, just it's not like he's ever been a gangster. That maybe Shadow.
Yeah, he was never hood. He was never really rap oriented. He was just a cool guy.
Well, clarification. He was never hood unless you bought those Kiosk Mall T-shirts.
Oh yeah. I have several.
Then he was absolutely hood. But that's besides the point. No, I mean you think about fast, speed, attitude. Gosh, there's got to be a million different songs. I mean, I saw a cut of using a Queen song. What's the name of the song? Don't Stop Me Now. There you go. It's quick paced. It's peppy. It's energetic. Perfect. And
the thing is, though, is that song has a feeling of don't stop me. He's letting loose and he's going crazy. Why Gangster's Paradise? It doesn't say anything about that character at all.
As I walked through the valley.
Nope.
In the shadow of death.
If you say another lyric, we're gonna get sued.
Shadow. That's the connection.
Shadow.
They're alluding to the sequel.
We got there. Two other things. This apparently was originally envisioned with Chris Pratt, but I think he turned it down only because that was the concept footage when it first came out. The guy looked like Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt being the cop?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I could see that. Instead, we got Cyclops.
He seems like a nice guy.
Oh, I've got no problem with him. He's going to be just the straight man experiencing and reacting to things. That there's the structure of the movie. They've got to have that character, I assume, and he seems perfectly fine for that role. Yeah,
he'll do just fine. And the last good thing about this, finally, we get classic Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey ass Jim Carrey. I couldn't be happier about getting him back to his roots, get him slap happy, let's get him silly, let's have him doing some weird voices and wacky faces. I'm on board.
I haven't been following Jim Carrey, but it feels like it's been a while since we've gotten that version of Jim Carrey. But you're right, it was manic, erratic, sort of crazy faces or deadpan faces where a crazy face would make more sense, but I'm interested to see, what the full performance is, because I'm sure I'll end up seeing this in theaters if my kids are remotely interested.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to make Sonic look a little human-like, he probably needs pants.
I mean, Donald Duck doesn't wear pants.
But Donald Duck doesn't look like a human. They changed Sonic to look like a human, put him on pants. Or don't make him look human.
Detective Pikachu doesn't wear pants.
And he's not looking like a human. He looks like a Pikachu.
What about Mr. Mime? Mr. Mime looks human-like, and he definitely doesn't wear pants in that movie.
I am now Googling Mr. Mime. And does he have pants? It does kind of look like he has pants. It's close enough.
No, that's part of his body. That's like those models that have painted on jeans.
It's close enough.
Camouflage.
I think I'll probably end up seeing this, if only because I don't mind seeing bad movies, and I think that seeing bad movies is just an experience of itself. I liked Love Guru, and I saw Dragon Ball Evolution in theaters. You couldn't get over that one, huh?
I mean, I wouldn't even attempt watching Dragon Ball Evolution as a lark. No, that looked awful
And
from the moment that it was birthed.
also, may I add, I was the one that made you watch the Mario Brothers movie.
See, that was a good movie. that wrapped around from being so bad that it was good. You don't appreciate that, but it's true.
I don't disagree with you. That's why I made you watch it. So, Sonic movie, I'll probably see it. Joel's kids may see it. He may nap through it.
No, I'll see it. I'll see it.
So, Joel, you put on this other news story.
Psyonix, the creators of Rocket League, a game that I've probably dumped a good 200 hours in between PlayStation 4, PC. I haven't been a sucker enough to buy on Switch yet, but they were bought out by Shinra. No, excuse me, Epic Games. Yeah.
Shinra.
But well, I mean, they're literally Hitler, depending on who you talk to online. But so yeah, that was a real surprise because there was no indication or illusion that Psyonix was even considering being bought out by anyone. And really, Epic Games, I don't recall them actually buying developers at this point. They made exclusivity deals with some, especially with high-profile games coming out. But have they bought out anyone else recently?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm looking now, but not that I was aware of. It looks like they might be there first.
And it's funny, my gut reaction, usually when I see these announcements about time exclusivity, is kind of like, whatever, it's still on PC, you have to deal with a separate launcher if you want to do it day one. It's not like you're not able to buy it at all. But for some reason, this hit me negatively starting out. And it might have been the way it was framed a little bit, because the announcement came from Psyonix, and they had like a Q&A document, but it answered basically nothing. It basically just turned itself back around to, this is going to allow us to add new features and do more events and stuff like that. And what's going to change? Absolutely nothing. And it's kind of like, well, that seems a little vague-ish and leaves you a lot of wiggle room to eke out the truth later. And then lo and behold, the truth does eke out, including like it's gonna no longer be on Steam once it's available on Epic. Mm-hmm. And they had to clarify after that owners on Steam weren't going to lose access to it, but that was something that wasn't clarified either, which I guess rational minds might at least assume that's the case. But there have been cases where games got removed from Steam, and then even if you owned the license to the game, that got removed too. So we're in this age where the digital future is kind of a scary thing, because nobody guarantees you having access to the stuff over time.
Yeah, I will say I had Deadpool, the Marvel game. They removed that one, but I think that they let me keep it, but they stopped selling it for a short stint until they re-released it. So
right. But I mean, I can't remember which PC ones, but I know that on PlayStation 3, the Simpsons arcade game and the X-Men arcade game, those are two examples where they removed it from the store and then you can't re-download it. Or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which is like one of my favorite beat-em-ups over the last couple generations, similarly has that same problem where I've got it on my PlayStation and once it's kaput, it's gone. And I think I've said this before in a past episode, but it's a real grievance for me. But that said, giving it a little bit of time, it's not that big of a deal for the most part. I'll say it's lame for people who haven't got it yet. Mm-hmm. because apparently Epic Store does not work on Linux and Steam does. So if you're wanting it on PC, you're going to have to buy it on Steam if you run Linux.
Yeah.
The other thing that's a big question mark is how long they continue supporting Steam users with things like events, and if you're into like the cosmetics, trying to get the new cosmetics and stuff, or if they're going to be Epic exclusive ones that only work if you're a part of the Epic Game Store. You would think that it doesn't make sense from a money-making standpoint to cut off people from being able to buy loot box keys, but you wonder. Just based on the dynamic that Steam and Epic have currently. It's really combative, right? But the other thing too is like, I know that the esports scene is something that they're trying to grow, and you know where I live, it's like if you see Rocket League on TV at a restaurant, it's like, well, they must be doing something pretty big. So maybe this lets them bankroll bigger prizes or more high-profile marquee events that grows the sport, so to speak.
That, and I was going to say, in that instance that you had referenced about if there was going to be Steam versus Epic, at that point then they would have to make separate servers, and so I kind of wonder what that would entail as far as extra work is concerned. Segregating the core audience like that may not be feasible. Unless,
well, I don't know. Is that the case? Because the Nintendo Switch version has like Nintendo exclusive cosmetics, and you can run into Nintendo players if you're playing on PC or Xbox because they've got crossplay. So you could see it. It's just you wouldn't be able to receive it because it was a Nintendo exclusive item. Right?
Oh yeah, I could see that, the exclusives being there, but you guys would still be able to play with each other.
Right, and you know me, the cosmetics aren't a big deal for me. I'm not going to go out of my way to try to farm it or anything, and I'm definitely not going to pay money to buy keys to unlock random loot crates for a chance to get something. But that's something to consider, at least for people who do care about those things. Or maybe the fear that happened with Minecraft when Microsoft bought it out comes true, and a year from now they release Rocket League 2. Then anybody with Rocket League 1 is going to be left behind. That leans more tinfoil hat concerns than what I want to veer into, but it's a thought that did cross my mind.
Of course. I think that the hate overall is a little over the top with Epic. The way people hate, just throw all these theories out, or it's all crappy, and people still just have this beef with them, and even with this Rocket League thing, they're like, well, I guess I'm done with Rocket League, and no, just enjoy Rocket League. It's fine. You can enjoy Rocket League and not like Epic. Also, Epic is not that big of a deal.
It's tiring, and what's really tiring about it is people standing for businesses like this. Like, Steam is not your friend. Epic is not your friend.
No.
They're a storefront trying to sell you something, and they'll get away with what they can before it brushes the line of legality, or what they can try to frame as good customer service. Even ones with good reputations like Nintendo, they're not doing it out of a altruistic standpoint. They're doing it because they want to have that vision of what people perceive them as. So the fanboy console war-ish nature of it is ludicrous for a few ways for me about this kind of stuff, but especially like the strange devotion to Steam as some monopolistic juggernaut over the PC gaming industry is really strange to me.
It is to me too. I just don't get it. But these two stories tell me to stay away from those comment sections in YouTube videos and video game articles. Also, that video games might have been a mistake. Anyways.
No, video game comment sections were a mistake.
Very true.
And user reviews.
Debatable. But let's take a break and head into the blog. And we're back with the Backlog Blog, where we take some time to appreciate those impulse buys and that one game in that humble bundle we bought that one time, but we never got a chance to play.
I'm looking at you, the witness.
So
No, I probably won't play that.
So, Joel, you came to me this week and you were talking about a game that I have played quite a bit over the last year or two, just here and there, just playing like 10 minutes. You picked up Cook, Serve, Delicious 2.
Yes. So, for those who might not know, I sometimes do some freelance work for a Nintendo-focused website called Nintendo World Report. And in this instance, they had this game available for a review code, and I remember hearing lots of positive buzz from you back when you got it on PC, and figured that, well, it seemed like a game that would work really well on Switch, so I jumped in.
So you got it on Switch. I didn't realize it was coming out on Switch. I may have to rebuy this game now.
Yeah, I guess it came out earlier in April. I was not even aware. I mean, so many games come out anymore that it's hard to keep track of what's being ported.
Especially to Switch. Everything's coming to Switch now, which except for the games that really matter. R.I.P. Persona 5.
I don't know. Duck Game came out, so that's one.
Oh, yeah, Duck Game. That'll be up here, too. I got to talk about that one. Back to Cook, Serve, Delicious 2. It is a game where they put you as a restaurateur. You are in charge of this very generic, just a very 2D, not pixel, but very plainly drawn restaurant. And they give you this restaurant and they say, this is what you could cook. And if in the beginning you're cooking hot dogs and hamburgers, you have to pre-cook hot dogs and then toss them on the warmer. And you do all of this setting up for when you get orders from customers. There's a lunch rush and you go basically a full work day, beginning to end, cooking these meals, putting together their orders, what they want. If they want ketchup, mustard, while also keeping your kitchen clean, taking out the garbage, cleaning the toilets, filling the soda machine with more ice. The interesting part about this game is the inputs.
Yeah, so when you're looking at the screen, to your left, there are 6 or 7 different sections that are the incoming orders, and then at the top of the screen are staging areas that you can do prep work for some of the orders that if you do prep work, you can jump into making the meal quicker. If you don't do prep or work, you have to individually cook those items for each individual order. And then on the right is sort of your input screen, and you end up having to select the menu item from the left with one button when you want to try to make it, and then to your right is that input where you are putting the different ingredients. So for that hot dog, if you cook it as prep work, it'll go straight to choosing the bun, and it'll be like regular, premium, or pretzel bun. And then you have to choose the one out of the 3, and it'll be 3 different buttons that you have to choose from. And then from after that, it gives you a menu of the different toppings that you can put on it, where it'll be chili, onions, ketchup, mustard, cheese, and each different order will have a different string of those items that they want on their order. So it really is about, okay, we're to select this order, understanding the order of operation you assemble the thing together on, and then holding down the left or right trigger to pick different parts of that menu to the right that lets you choose different toppings or accessories to the menu.
Yes, exactly. And it's easy to get tricked up with these inputs. You kind of said you get a bun, you get the condiments, but you could do it technically kind of out of order, where it is to pull up the buns, hold left trigger, then you have X, Y, and B. These are your 3 options. So, okay, which one is X, Y, and B? Okay, which one does he want first? Okay, then it's like, okay, now I need condiments. Hold right trigger, now it's X, Y, B, but if you want the second level, because there's more condiments even than that, it's right bumper, and then X, Y, and B. And in this case, there's orders popping up. They all have timers. You got to clean the bathrooms, and even clean the bathrooms, you got to hit this input. Hold left trigger, hit A twice, 3 times, 4 times, cleaning, scrubbing the toilet. Go back now. It just becomes a game of you trying to figure out where your fingers are at any given time on a controller. Also managing all of your orders to make sure you have food warm. The dinner rush is coming. Cleaning up, getting everything ready, and
and some of those inputs, like the dishwasher. The dishwasher, you have to clean dishes and then like take them out, and it's a 4 or 5 different button input string. But also part of that string is you sitting there and waiting for the dishwasher to run and get done. So you get halfway through, have to sit there a couple extra seconds while it goes through before you can even complete the chain. All the while you're looking to your left and you're seeing your 4 or 5 other orders. As you're waiting too long to do them, the order starts to slip further and further to the left until it disappears disappears, and then it's like a missed opportunity, and you get dinged on your performance for it. So you're seeing these slip away as you're trying to finish these longer strings, and it's like shit as it goes away.
It tests your nervous energy, because I feel like you can kind of snap on yourself and be like, son of a why? No, okay, no, that hot dog doesn't go. I accidentally put cheese on that guy's nachos, and he only wanted beans. Crap. Okay, no, okay, no.
Yeah, it could be downright stressful. I mean, that starting out, that was my first impression. Was like, this first level, I'm stressed, because how you do well is you memorize the order of operation for completing a certain order, and in each level or restaurant has a certain number of menu items. So the starting out one has like hot dogs, pretzels. I think they had nachos and something else. I can't remember off the top of my head. But those specific items will have their own order of operation to complete the order, and then accessories that they might be tailored to. And then you move on to the next restaurant, and they're going to have different menu items. So there's like a Chinese restaurant, and I think there's a Mexican restaurant, and there's like a ton of different levels. And so how you do well is rote memorization of what orders need what, and then iterating on trying again and again until you've got it down like a science. Like you're just moving without thinking about it.
Yeah, and your fingers you just get used to where your the finger placements need to go. You start memorizing everything, and as the game progresses, you get new and more different types of food. You can get Japanese food, again, classic American, you can get French food, and it continues to progress where you just get to be part of these different restaurants, and they score you bronze, silver, or gold. And then they add an additional component where as you're completing levels, you get unlocks. Unlocks are like a special kind of chair, a special picture, a background. Then you can use that to decorate your own restaurant, which is downright garish. I let my wife design mine. And there was pictures of dogs, and half the tables were polka dot, so that was kind of weird.
So that's all the stuff I've been unlocking. You can create your own.
Yeah.
I should probably look into that and see what kind of monstrosity Sonic tier level I can create.
It's real ugly. It's real ugly, but it's very fun. It's very charming. The game, because it's very pleasant. It's very corporate. Very corporate, big smile on your face. Let's help the customer the best way you can. And when you're good.
Yeah, actually, the presentation is probably one of my favorite things about this game. So, at face value, when you're first starting it out, it kind of feels like a Flash game, truthfully. Like, all of the backgrounds, like you said, are very kind of basic, in some ways they're kind of bland, depending on where you're at. But you get to the actual cooking of the items, and when you select something to cook and you're placing things together, they're like these strangely high-resolution images, like they took photos of them and scanned them into the game. And on top of that, as you're adding ingredients, like the piece of food shakes, and then if it's something like chili or queso, it like plops on top of the food on top of that with these really funny sounds, and it adds a bit of feedback almost to what you're doing, to also give you the sense that you're making progress as you go along. But just the tactile feedback feels good as you're going through the orders and seeing these things get assembled together, and it's like, yeah, that's a good looking hot dog. Yeah, we did a good job on that nachos. Oh shit, that didn't mean to have jalapenos on that order. It's part of what made it kind of a zen experience as you are getting in the groove of a rush hour and you've got it down.
That also makes you ask, what kind of monster likes broccoli on their baked potato?
That sounds like something I'd tease my son with.
Yeah, and you can do it, and people request it in the game.
No. No, that's why it's a video game. I mean, it's the same idea of like being a game around something that no rational person would have fun doing as a job, but turning something not fun into a fun experience.
The sound effects, though, do really also add to the chaos of your playing. So as you're going along and it's rush hour, you're seeing the customers mumble and grumble behind you. The dishes are clanging. Your food is plopping on the plate, and it's a lot of audio feedback. So it's meant to seem like a lot just on top of you and a lot of chaos going on.
So what was your favorite chore to do?
What was my favorite
chore?
Oh, my favorite chore?
Yeah.
I like the dumpster because as you play through the stage,
yeah,
it gets more and more full, so by the end you're just stomping it with a boot.
Yes, and just hitting that button over and over and over. And for Switch, you actually feel a little bit of rumble as you're hitting it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was satisfying because it's always like, again, especially if you're in a rush, it's like hit to get it down, and then using sanitizer and being done with it.
I definitely I think that would be a fun Switch game to just pick up and like, oh, I'm gonna go through a round real quick. I'm gonna do one day of cooking as the chef for a level and then just put it away.
Exactly. That's been my experience. I have not touched it on a TV itself. It's always been in handheld mode, and I can't imagine sitting in front of a computer and playing it, because that's perfectly something that I want to sit on the couch, have right in my hand, have the controls right up to my face, and feel like I'm just in motion, completing the orders and trying to get the flow going.
Oh yeah, and I just looked it up. $13. That's a great price for that.
Yeah, I would have paid for it if I knew what I was getting into. That's a fair entry price for this. On PC, are you using the keyboard?
No, I was using an Xbox controller.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to imagine how you'd manage a keyboard on this, and I'm not...
Yeah.
I suppose it worked fine, but I definitely would prefer a controller for something like this.
You're now making me like interested in the idea that if I like, okay, hold Q, W, and the 3 key, and now start hitting B and A to pick your, I'm like, that could be really funny.
Maybe you could try a multiplayer version where one of you chooses one half of the keyboard and the other one chooses the other half of the keyboard, and see how well that works out.
And now I have ideas for tonight.
Poor Beth.
Overall, I rate this game delicious. I mean, it's probably not, especially on Switch, because they spray that stuff.
It's called Bitterant.
Oh, okay. They spray Bitterant on the carts. I've actually at parties dared people to lick it. It's a fun game for all of 30 seconds.
Did you at least give them a fresh cart? Because that sounds bad.
I should keep track. Anyways, now I want to give even more updates to Super GG Radio. Exciting times all around. So last week we kind of gave a state of Super GG Radio with additions of our WordPress blog and our subreddit, where we're posting our episodes and going to be posting a little bit more. But now is even further. Just want to give a little secondary breakdown where we have a Facebook now. Joel, that was your fault. I blame you entirely.
Zuckerberg made me do it. No, just another venue. It's going to be like Twitter, just a place for us to post the stuff that we're doing, and a repository if there's anybody that is leaning more towards Facebook membership than Twitter membership. And we'll see what we do with it, but it's probably just going to be another space for people to follow us.
Of course. We're starting to work on some reviews on the WordPress blog, and some interesting opportunities presented themselves for us to be able to interview with indie devs, incoming in both text and audio forms for bonus content. So that'll probably be on the subreddit, on the WordPress, on the Facebook. Just something fell into our lap, and I think that we're going to start chasing down some of these opportunities.
Yeah, that one's exciting to me. I'm real curious to see what kind of conversations we'd have with the developer on that game. Yeah,
me too. I haven't talked to a lot of developers, only just here and there in passing, so kind of excited to ask some of these questions as somebody who is just now finding out how video games are made. We will also be starting a streaming series. We've been streaming here and there, hit or miss, me and Joel, different scenarios, different games, but we have some ideas where we are working with a friend of Super GG Radio and streamer Kevin Hartwig, aka Kudos Blastfax, where he will be streaming on our Twitch of twitch.tv/superggradio. And we have conned him into streaming the greatest story ever told. Metal Gear Solid. All of them. Minus Peace Walker.
What about Metal Gear Acid?
No.
Metal Gear Revengeance?
Yes. I want him to play that.
Awesome. All right. Fair.
And will we make offhanded comments and jokes in the future podcast regarding his progress? Yes, we will. And probably interview him on it. And will we join him via video chat and comment alongside as he's playing? That will probably be some things we jump into as well. The last big thing that we have going is that we will have next week a surprise rotating chair. Joining us next week and hopefully permanently, our good friend Eric Gettinger. So we have some exciting stuff, exciting times. We're still growing, figuring out where we want to head with this, but I can for sure say the podcast will be the focal point throughout. Get ready for next week when we see how much free chicken we can eat during the course of the podcast.
Wait, free chicken?
I read that wrong. Fried chicken. Man, I should be paying attention more.
Oh, you perked my ears up.
You got excited for free chicken?
Well, I was wondering how you're going to deliver on that promise more than anything.
I can mail it to you. FedEx.
Yeah, I look forward to you sending me printed pictures of chicken.
And that will be it for this week's Super GG Radio. Before we go, you can find us on Twitter at Super GG Radio and twitch.tv/Super GG Radio, where, bold statement, the wife and I have discussed streaming our Just Dance workouts, which will be embarrassing for all involved. But it will at least be a fun joke for our immediate families and keep us trying to work out more. What about you, Joel?
No, I got nothing.
Are you modding the PlayStation Classic yet?
I have not gotten around to that yet. I've been promising myself to do that for the last 2 weeks, and we're 2 weeks and counting where I haven't done so yet. And I owe myself and my wife a chance to go see Avengers this weekend, so we're going to be out of pocket for that.
Oh, that's true. It's like 9 hours, so...
Yeah.
And let me tell you, there's like 17 after credits scenes, so enjoy.
Oh, great. Well, at least I'll know when to go to the bathroom.
There you go. If you'd like to reach us with questions or input, our email address is superggradio@gmail.com, and provide a review on iTunes or the podcast app of your choice. Thanks for listening, and good game, Joel.
Good game, Alex.